It starts today.
It's a simple trial. One prosecution witness.
You can't put me on a case and expect us...
Actually, I can, Eugene. Perks of the road. Now, he fired his last lawyer, just like the two before that, and I have an obligation to make sure he gets a fair trial with adequate representation.
Well, if you're so concerned with fairness, how about giving me time to fully prepare?
Well, I'm not that concerned. Let me be frank. The defendant is world-class scum. I'm sure he's guilty of the crime.
Well, I'm glad you have an open mind.
Oh, please. A mind is like a wound. If it's too open, you get an infection. Now, he is stalling by firing one attorney after another. I am not going to let him get away with it anymore.
Why me?
Because you're as good as it gets when it comes to criminal law. And I don't want to give this bastard a shot of appeal on inadequacy of counsel. So you will do it. Helen Gamble will be the DA. We all know how jolly she can be. See you in there. Go meet your lovely wife-murdering client. His personnel file?
Well, I see he's receiving psychiatric treatment.
That would be totally privileged.
Ordinarily, yes. But sometimes the courts have looked into the records of police officers when they're relevant to the case.
And what would be the relevance here?
I don't know, Your Honor. But you saw him up there. He's hiding something. And if there's anything in those files that goes to his credibility, I should be allowed access.
You haven't made any showing, and you can't make any offer of proof that there is anything.
Helen, come on. I just got this case with my morning cup of coffee. And I know Your Honor doesn't want to give this world-class citizen any grounds for appeal.
I'll tell you what. I will look at the report. If I see anything that's relevant, I'll let you look. Otherwise, forget it.
It's totally irrelevant.
That's my call, actually. But thanks for your input.
Well, I'm not so sure it is irrelevant. If this situation caused stress, which affected job performance...
Well, it didn't.
That's what it seems to suggest.
His sexual orientation did not impair his ability to make an ID of a fleeing suspect, Eugene.
Helen, this whole case turns on the credibility of this officer. If he was dealing with severe stress, I have to be allowed to cross-examine him.
First, this is so collateral.
I disagree.
And second, it will ruin the man's life.
And the conviction ruins another man's life.
You really want to go down that path?
Your Honor, you want to take me off this case? Fine. But as long as I'm on it...
You will be despicable.
I don't need that.
All right. I will let you introduce that he was receiving psychiatric treatment for stress. The cause of that stress is off limits.
I'd like to read the report.
Denied. And Eugene, you are not to even share this information with your client.
I don't think you can order that.
I just did. Approach. This seems a bit much. Why are you doing this?
Your Honor, look out there. That's her family. How can I not do it?
I can't say I'm overwhelmed by the merits. But there's enough to go forward.
There's nothing to go forward.
Defendant's motion to dismiss denied. Bring in the jury.
I need a second.
Ex parte counsel.
Oh, we're suddenly going to exalt the law?
It would be a big mistake for you to come in here and insult me.
Well, this seems to be the day for big mistakes. There was no basis for that verdict, and you know it. It was totally...
You're going to tell me what I know?
Let me tell you what I know. I've always known you to be a judge who's about the law. Despite all the wacky stuff you got going on, when you put that robe on, you've always been a judge. A good one. A fair one. You pride yourself on that. Where the hell was your pride today? The district attorney delivered one of the most bigoted closings I've ever seen. And you didn't blink. The prejudice in this trial has been screaming. And the loudest scream came in the form of that verdict. How in God's name can you let it stand?
For the record, counsel, what you call bigotry, the district attorney calls motive, and she is free to argue that. Second, circumstantial evidence is enough to convict, and this jury found that evidence to be compelling. It is not my function to substitute my judgment. And lastly, off the record, any man whose brother burns women alive, he can't be all good. Now please leave.
Wow. I guess prejudice is cloaked in black robes sometimes, too.
I asked you to leave, and you would be wise to do so now.
And he wants to talk to you.
First of all, you shouldn't have continued the conversation.
I only did it because it seemed to be a matter of life and death. And if what he is saying is true, then he doesn't really have counsel, does he?
Where is he now?
In a cell. I can have him here in 30 seconds.
There has to be a defense attorney present.
Why?
Because there does. Mr. Young? Mr. Young, this is Kevin Macklin. I need you to just stand here while I figure this out.
Figure what out?
Just hold a wall up for a second, please. All right, Mr. Macklin. What is it you wanted to see me about?
Like I told Miss Gamble, I want to plead guilty.
Whoa, Your Honor, I'm out of here.
Stay still, Mr. Young. If you want to plead guilty, sir, that is your right. But you need to discuss that with your lawyer.
Mr. Reese doesn't really represent me. When I got arrested, the people I work for arranged for him to defend me. His job is to make sure I don't talk to the police. And if he found out we were having this conversation right now, I'd be dead.
Okay, Mr. Macklin. Let's see what happens. Mr. Young, as of now, I'm appointing you this defendant's shadow counsel.
Shadow what?
I am removing Mr. Reese with Mr. Macklin's consent, and I am assigning you in his place.
Well, you can't do that.
I can do it, and it's done. In the next 8 hours, I expect you to conference this case with your client, with the district attorney, and with anybody else who can make my life easier.
What about Reese?
Until I say so, nobody says anything to Mr. Reese. Are we clear?
Your Honor.
I'll adjourn the case until tomorrow. If there is no resolution by then, I intend to proceed with the trial.
I have to work in this courthouse. My reputation with the state, that's one thing. But these are my colleagues. I can't start representing their clients behind their backs.
Under the circumstances, I don't think we have much of a choice.
What are you going to tell Reese?
That the judge suddenly isn't feeling well, and the case is continued until tomorrow. That's all he has to know.
You're putting me into a position where I can't...
Talk to your client, Eugene. I want an update by the end of the day.
We stipulate to withdrawing the guilty plea. Enter guilty to narcotic trafficking. Mr. Macklin goes into witness protection. All of this is conditioned on a detailed statement.
And you're confident this man has the information to warrant such a break?
He's the chemist. He's got names, locations. He's a gold mine.
What if he turns out not to be a gold mine?
Then I have the right to call the deal off.
Eugene? A little quiet.
I think the whole thing stinks. Not to betray my new client, but he could be making everything up. And on his word alone, we've gone behind the back of defense counsel. It smells lousy to me.
Do I look like I'm having fun?
All right. Let's bring him in.
Mitchell?
Eugene. Hey. What's going on?
There's no easy way to say this, counsel, so I'll get right to the point. The trial is over.
What do you mean? You're granting a mistrial?
There's no mistrial. Your client, Mr. Macklin, has pled guilty.
Guilty? That's ridiculous. How could he plead guilty without a lawyer?
He had a lawyer. At Mr. Macklin's request, I assigned Eugene Young to replace you.
Excuse me? Where is my client? What is this, some sort of a joke? Get my client in here now.
At his request, Mr. Macklin entered witness protection an hour ago.
Witness protection? Helen?
He claims you were hired to defend him by the drug ring and that you actually work for them.
And you believed him?
He also feared for his life.
So what, you just replaced me? Your Honor, this afternoon when you asked for a continuance, that was a lie?
At the time, I felt it was best to mislead you.
Helen, you've known me for 12 years. I prosecuted these cases. Didn't you think I deserved to know about this? At least have a chance to defend myself.
How could we tell you? If the client was right, it might get him killed.
Well, you made a mistake. Both of you. I'm going straight to the bar.
Who hired you to represent Kevin Macklin?
Go to hell.
I'll ask you again. Who hired you to represent Kevin Macklin?
I'm not saying anything.
You don't have a choice. Mitchell, this is a subpoena commanding your immediate appearance before a grand jury. Mitchell, it's up to you. You tell us now or you tell us then.
Attorney-client privilege. Your Honor, the person who hired me is also a client. Who I represent is highly confidential.
The identity of your client is outside the privilege.
Not when you have elements of the crime and revealing the identity could incriminate.
I am ordering you to answer, counsel.
Well, I won't.
I'll take the matter under advisement. I'll let you know when I make a decision. Until then, we're adjourned.
Come on, Helen.
You know, don't you start on me.
I will. What you did was
Look, you do what you do. I do what I do. Why is it personal every single time I try...
Because you lied to me, and that's personal.
Oh, you know, for God's sake.
That's enough.
You accuse innocent people in an open courtroom.
Well, this is different from
now
that.
You
All of
got
you.
a guilty client and you quiet.
Wait till my ruling. Until then, try to conduct yourselves with some civility. Ms. Gamble, while I understand your gallant pursuit of justice, it is unfortunate you choose to do so at the expense of your own integrity, as well as that of the process. Nonetheless, the Supreme Court has made its decision, and while I respectfully disagree, I am bound to accept it. I find Ms. Gamble's actions did not violate our federal Constitution. The motion to suppress on those grounds is denied. This is, however, a state prosecution and must be considered also in light of our state constitution, which, without binding precedent, I am charged to interpret to determine if it grants the citizens of this Commonwealth more protection than our federal system provides. I find that it does. I find that in Massachusetts, the police must inform a suspect when a lawyer tries to render assistance.
Your Honor.
Sit down, Miss Gamble. Moreover, it's bad enough that we have DAs lying to suspects. But when they start lying to defense counsel as well, we are the system, Miss Gamble. The players have to play honestly. Mr. Larson's confession is hereby suppressed. Without the confession, I find insufficient evidence to hold the defendant. He is free to go. This case is dismissed without prejudice. This court is adjourned. Based on what I'm hearing, I'd say it's a guarantee. But juvenile records are sealed. And as for the prior bad acts, I'd be handing him an appeal on a silver platter. It's not coming in.
So we're just going to pretend for the jury that none of this ever happened?
We're going to finish the case. What do you mean you want out?
Just what I'm saying, Your Honor.
The trial is set to start in 40 minutes.
My client and I have insurmountable differences which would have...
Such as?
That's privileged. Let's just say it's about strategy and ethics.
Eugene, every lawyer seems to have insurmountable differences with the court-appointed cases.
I'm telling you, this one is real. You know me well enough to know that if I say it, It is real.
I'm not letting you out for a strategy difference. Forget it.
Your Honor, I'm asking a favor here.
I can't let you out. Not now. That the sex was consensual?
This is his defense, Your Honor, and you can take me off whenever you please.
Assuming that Mr. Young does in fact have a good faith basis for the question, I'll allow it.
Your Honor.
He's entitled to put on a defense, counsel. But tread lightly, Eugene. Now step back.
Mr. Young is trying to make this about race.
Move to strike!
Counsel, get up here. I will hold both of you in contempt if there's another such outburst. Who is Dr. Seidman?
He testifies white people can't tell one black man from another.
Sorry?
He's an expert on cross-racial impairment of eyewitnesses.
This has been rejected by other courts, plus Mr. Young gave no notice.
I didn't know race would be an issue.
You are the one making race an issue.
If I can't call this witness, I'll take you up, emergency appeal, and I want a mistrial.
You may call Dr. Seidman.
You're letting him run your court.
I'd run my court, Miss Gamble. If Dr. Seidman is a buffoon, I will instruct the jury to disregard. Mr. Foreman, as to the charge of murder in the first degree, how say you?
Your Honor, the jury has a statement.
You have a what?
We were told it was our civic duty to serve on a jury because the Constitution guarantees every defendant the absolute right to be judged by a jury of his peers.
This is not a forum for public...
We were told that the American system, for all its flaws, is the best system in the world because of the concept of the citizen jury.
Move for immediate reading of the verdict.
But what we found...
Sir! You have one more chance before you risk a finding of contempt. Have you all agreed on a verdict?
What we've agreed on is that this has been about the most appalling spectacle we have ever seen. The only thing that should matter in here is, did the defendant or did he not commit the crime? Nobody here cares, not her, not him, and not you. Nothing that's gone on here has been about giving the jurors the information they need to make the right decision. A girl is dead. A man's freedom is at risk. If he killed her, his liberty should be forfeited. And we're supposed to decide. Based on what, exactly? We want justice for the victim. But we can't provide it.
Are you saying you cannot reach a unanimous verdict?
No, Your Honor. What we're saying is we refuse to try. We have not reached a verdict. We will not reach a verdict. If you want to hold us in contempt, well, there's a certain justice in that because contempt is what we feel.
You are in contempt. Security, would you please take the jury into custody? I declare this a mistrial. Ms. Gamble, you may ask for a date to begin the retrial. We're adjourned. Stand up, Ms. Gamble. I watched that tape. And once again, I find myself disgusted by your tactics. Trickery and deceit may pass constitutional muster, but it gives you, this court, and the concept of honor a very black eye. I hear you complain all the time about the erosion of public trust, and yet your own behavior puts no value on it. Go stand in the corner.
I beg your pardon?
You heard me. Go in that corner and stand. Face in.
Your Honor, with all due respect to your authority in this room...
You'll feel the extent of that authority if you defy it, counsel.
I'm not about...
March yourself into that corner now, or you go to a jail cell. Mr. Belluti, your client was not represented by counsel at the time of this interrogation. She at no time asked for a lawyer, and however deceived, tired, and badgered she may have been, there is no indication that her statement wasn't voluntary. The confession, however putridly obtained, therefore stands. The defendant will stay in custody. We're adjourned.
I represent the real kidnapper.
This is ex parte.
It isn't Bernice White.
Get out of here.
If she goes to trial with a confession, she's gone.
You are one sentence away from the jail cell Helen Gamble almost got. This is ex parte. Highly improper. I will disregard it in its entirety and ask for your bar card if you utter another syllable. Convince your other client to turn herself in if you want, but don't you dare come to me. Jimmy... Nothing. Go.
What?
I was about to say, on a more personal note, how are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm, okay. And the plea of manslaughter is acceptable to the Commonwealth?
Yes, Your Honor, with a joint recommendation for a 6-year sentence starting immediately upon the entering of the verdicts.
Mr. and Mrs. Hubert, please rise. Mr. Hubert, do you understand that you are pleading guilty to the charge of voluntary manslaughter?
Yes, Your Honor.
And by doing so, you are acknowledging guilt and criminal responsibility for the death of your son. Mr. Hubert, I asked you a question. Do you acknowledge your guilt and responsibility in the death of your son?
God took my son, Your Honor. We did everything we could to save him.
If that's how you feel, why, sir, are you pleading guilty?
Because counsel has advised us to.
Mrs. Hubert, do you also maintain your innocence?
Yes, Your Honor.
The plea bargain is rejected. Trial will begin tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We're adjourned.
Chambers, Your Honor.
Do you dare?
Chambers.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
A client can choose to plead guilty even while maintaining innocence.
Not with me, he can't.
Oh, come on. 90% of all pleas are based on an analysis of winning percentages. They have nothing to do with actual merits.
I don't accept guilty pleas from people claiming innocence. To do so would be a farce.
Our clients have a right to negotiate down from a murder to conviction. Every defendant has that right.
Eugene, I realize that 9 out of 10 judges would go along, but I don't. If somebody says they're innocent, I don't let them come stand in my courtroom and declare guilt for the purpose of improving disposition. It's a mockery. The trial starts tomorrow. Try to get over your disappointment, Helen. There will be no further delay of this trial. We start this morning. Mr. Walsh, if you think you can make a Section 12 showing, you're going to have to take it before another judge. I want the proceedings sealed. If you get your order, come back to me and I'll figure out a way to impose it without prejudicing the trial. Do any public yapping, and I will declare a mistrial and hold you in contempt. It would be a mistake to regard that as judicial bluster.
This is ridiculous.
Eugene, a child's life is in danger.
That child's not in danger, Helen. This has nothing to do
What are
with
you,
that
a doctor
child.
now?
I've heard enough. Into court. Let's go.
Be seated.
Ms. Shipp, to be honest, I wouldn't be thrilled to hear that Sousa-sized voice every morning. But, Mr. Emerson, when I was buying my house, I asked my real estate broker about privacy, and she said, oh, this is a quiet neighborhood. You won't have to worry about your neighbors getting all chummy or throwing block parties. People here like to keep to themselves. She said that as a selling point, something to drive the price higher. It's a sad day when people go to court to stop their neighbors from singing. Your motion for a TRO is denied. I'm entering judgment for the defendant.
Oh, thank you.
We're adjourned.
Oh, and thank you so much.
You're trying this case.
Your Honor.
If you were coming in here with the client's consent, that would be one thing, but without it...
Your Honor, this witness is
It's a conflict. I get it. But it's not prohibitive.
I'm telling you, it is. This is a rape case. I will have other things...
Eugene, you get my sympathy, but that is all you are getting. Was that your best work, Eugene?
My client didn't complain.
Problem is the district attorney did.
Excuse me?
She's an officer of the court. If she has knowledge of a defense attorney tanking a case...
I didn't tank it.
You could have discredited Jamie Stringer. You pulled back. That, to me...
I was afraid of alienating myself and my client from the jury, so I made a strategic decision not to attack Miss Stringer.
See, I might believe that if I hadn't seen you in action before. I have witnessed you going after rape victims. Here, the rape shield didn't even apply.
I made a strategic decision not to attack the witness. I certainly have discretion to make strategic decisions. Don't I, Your Honor?
Only you know what was in your mind, counsel.
There you go.
I'm disappointed, Eugene. That's all.